Ellie will let us know when we're back on the internet. Okay, good. So welcome. We've now come to those either listening live or viewing us subsequently on YouTube, and we've concluded the private session, and I've now got the responsibility of summing up. My view on things is that this is an important decision that the Cabinet is taking for an important asset of the Council, and this committee, I think, has fulfilled its function of shining a light on that decision, and we've had questions raised by the signatories tonight, and they've been responded to by Cabinet members and officers, and I'd like to thank all of you for your contributions tonight and all the work you've put into this. As a committee, I think that, as is clear from the, as I explained at the beginning, we've got two choices. Or we can either say that we think that the decision is sound and it will proceed with the delegated to the Director of Regeneration, but with the understanding that if it is brought forward as a decision, that it would come back to an overview and scrutiny committee again. Or we can say that we think there are, from what we've heard tonight, that we agree that there are certain areas, certain concerns we have about the decision, the way it was made, or the actual decision itself, that we think are sufficiently strong to ask that to agree between us that those should be referred back to the Cabinet. So yes, I have. So at this point, before we get to that, so I'm giving you time to think, actually, committee. Before we get to that point, I need to ask the signatories or the spokesman for the signatories if they are to confirm that they're satisfied that their concerns have been adequately considered at this meeting.
I think it's fair to say, Chair, I appreciate the committee's long discussions, and it's that stuff that says actually we may have discussed absolutely different views about whether the car park is redundant, but actually there seems to be a sort of a different view about whether the assessment for future versus sort of current assessments is accurate or not. There is also something, isn't there, about accepting this is a special site. We've had conversations both in the public session and in private session, and I don't think they're potentially confidential, about all the different sites that when we were in administration that we considered to give away or have a different sort of assessment as far as best value. And I think it's really important that we all understand how we do that. I think we have to be very clear that we treat backbenchers in the same way we would cabinet members. I don't think backbenchers are expecting best value to always be assessed in a spreadsheet. I think we are all grown up enough to understand, as we are ward councillors, that actually there are benefits that are about housing. They could be about social and economic issues as well. And I think how we assess those things under all the options becomes very important. I think it's also very important to understand that the call-in process is not political. And I am sadly disappointed by some of the statements that have been made in this room, because absolutely we are very supportive of getting the best outcome. And getting the call in registered and acknowledged and discussed, and I appreciate my colleagues as far as the committee discussing it in a very constructive way to get the best outcome. And that is likely to be a mix of things as far as hopefully an increased level of affordable housing, getting our delivery up, that would be great to meet this administration's target, but also just to think about, have we really assessed all the options? And one thing I would articulate, and I hope the committee will understand it and agree with it, is I think our conversations tonight have shown not all the options, whether that's an assessment of financial or other benefits, have been considered or demonstrated in evidence that they have been considered before this decision to progress and delegate, which will in effect it will mean an officer will make a decision, have been taken into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So I now have to ask any of the Cabinet members if they'd like to make any final comments.
Well, I think I would comment in relation to the all options considered. Obviously, part of this approach of looking at all council-owned land to see what had the potential to be affordable housing. Of course, part of that assessment is what is it used for now, what we might need it for in the future, and those considerations were made at arriving at the small set of sites that then put for viability testing, which led us to this site. So I think we have considered all options in that, to an extent, all options have been considered. The thing is, we had to get to this stage. The next stage is about looking at the offer that comes in. Remember, this is an in-principle decision that was made by Cabinet 9th of July. It was an in-principle decision, whenever it was, 20th of July, was an in-principle decision to go further and explore with RPs the potential for that site, in principle. So a final decision will be made if and when there is an option that appears before us that we consider to be viable and appropriate. And so I think it's very difficult in terms of the committee's job of if they decide to send it back to the Cabinet with recommendations, what those recommendations would be that we could reasonably do at this stage of the process. Because until we've spoken to the RPs and got to the next stage, at that point, I think there are probably options that we might have to look at and consider. But right now is, what would your recommendation be that Cabinet should be doing more of before proceeding in the way we are proceeding? I think we've provided lots of information and robust technical knowledge to the committee, that we've shared what we've seen with them. We've discussed it as a Cabinet at great length, and now we need to get on with it. The motion was passed in 2022, it's now 2026. It has taken us 4 years to get to the point of having one site. To stop now, bear in mind the clock is ticking on this council's existence. If we don't move now, we will be failing our residents and future residents for having something passed in 2022 and will be disappear in 2028. We haven't got a single house to show for it. So I'd ask the committee to support this going forward, so we can get to the next stage and come back to committee with hopefully a really exciting proposal.
Thank you, Councillor James. So committee, we reached the point where the ball is squarely in our court. We have a choice of either agreeing that we think that this is essentially a sound decision. I would like to think that this evening we have thoroughly scrutinised the decision, and I think it's important we do this. It's an important role as councillors in holding the administration to account, and we've heard from Cabinet members and officers the reasons that they have given for making the decision that they've made. So we have either to support the decision of the Cabinet, or if is there any council committee member who would like to put forward any grounds for which they think that there are some concerns about the decision that ought to be sent back to the Cabinet so that they can consider within the next 10 days.
Chair, if I can just expand on that, if indeed you are wanting to send it back to Cabinet, you need to be really clear what you're asking Cabinet to do and what you're asking them to reconsider, what you think the shortcomings are.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Deputy Monitoring Officer for giving us that clarity. My own view is that I think this decision would benefit from a referral back to Cabinet, and that it would be useful to get additional information and clarifications from Cabinet on a few of the items that we've discussed this evening. The first of those is a rationale around options assessments for the site, around the question of density and whether it is wise necessarily, if we are going to decide to go for an in-principle disposal, wise to tie the hands of the administration on the question of density, going for a lower density scheme, going for 100% and putting that very clearly at the top of the decision. And the question, I think, also of parking, looking to get some information on the future rather than necessarily absolutely right now. And then finally the question of quantum. So I think that my request back to Cabinet would be, and I'm conscious that some of those elements will require additional material being put together. I think my view would be that if the Cabinet is going to move ahead with this in principle, there's an additional information, an additional clarification that needs to be put together and needs to be presented for this decision.
Right. Neither Ellie or I got the last point you made then, I'm afraid.
So the last point. So I think it would be useful if for the Cabinet to reconsider on the basis of the conversation we've had this evening on the questions of options for the site, housing mix and density, and whether the Cabinet wishes to or should tie its hands on the question of 100% affordable and pushing for low density, and then related to that, the question of quantum. Because I think the Cabinet could take the same decision to move ahead to disposal for residential with a view towards affordable without saying at the outset, tying its hands on the position of low density and 100% affordable. I think that might be important.
Okay, Councillor Carr, thank you very much. Does anyone want to second that?
Yeah, I would, Chair, I'd wish to second it and add to it.
No, apparently you can't.
Okay.
No, we can take that as a next stage if we wish. Yeah. Councillor Snee.
Turned it off. Could I suggest that we decide whether we want to consider that we didn't want to do anything other than say that we accept the Cabinet's decision, because there is no need for us, if that was an unanimous decision or a majority decision, there's no need to start looking at what alternatives we need to add to the next part. And I have a bus to catch because I have to go home by bus. Apologies.
Chair, I think the position is that we have a proposal from Councillor Carr that it should go back, and he's given his reasons for that. Councillor Trum has seconded it, so it is a motion, and therefore you need to vote on going back to, that it goes back to Cabinet. If you disagree with that, then you need to vote against the motion, and if it falls, then obviously the converse of that is that the decision is approved and can proceed.
Thank you for that clarification. So should we have a vote then on this, please? So,
Are we clear? Is everybody clear what they need to do?
we're clear on that then. the motion from Councillor Carr. So those in favour of the motion? Against? Okay, so it does not succeed. So any other motions, or are we saying that that the majority of the committee actually supports the decision that has been taken by Cabinet? Councillor McCormack.
Chair, I think the central question of whether this decision is sound or not, I don't really see any evidence that it's like an unsound, improper decision, but I would like the Cabinet to consider maybe a bit of flexibility on the options as presented, including, I'm not at liberty to discuss which other sites, but developing other sites with a view to delivering more affordable housing. And if that involves approaching the Secretary of State, I think that's worth doing, given the expressed desire to build more affordable housing.
Councillor McCormack, I'm advised that that's too close to the previous motion that was voted down. So I'm on advice.
I think the position is you had the majority of this committee who did not want to refer it back to Cabinet, and therefore the converse of that is that they're happy with the decision and it should proceed to the next stage.
I think that is the conclusion that we need to make here, and there will be observations that have been made tonight, comments made that the Cabinet, I'm sure, will take account of going forward, and there will be an opportunity for this decision to come back again to an overview and scrutiny committee. So thank you all very much for your attendance tonight, and I hope you catch your bus, Councillor Slimming.